Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to episode 139 of Songs of Selah here on 17 Numa Radio. Thank you for tuning in this evening. I'm your host, Scott Thomas Outler, and it is Monday, March the 22nd, 2021. I'd like to start things off by wishing everyone a happy and peaceful spring ahead. Really is the most wonderful time of the year, I'd say. Well, maybe it ranks in a dead heat with summer, winter, and autumn. How's that for narrowing down the options? Hell, it's difficult to choose a favorite when each season brings such unique, sublime characteristics to the scene. But witnessing the buds begin to bloom as fruition sparks and colors erupt is certainly something special. And I'm in no mood to take these natural blessings for granted. We might be living through the age of Wuhan, but it's still the new roaring 20s after all. There is some solace and comfort to be found in that fact. At least that's my perspective, and I'm sticking to it. Coming up in the next segment, I'll be joined by Red Fox, editor-in-chief at Alien Buddha Press. He'll be coming on to help set up what is sure to be a cool evening ahead when Amy Solo, Jared Morningstar, and Matthew Ussia all come on board to share selections from their new ABP collections. Amy will be reading from Mothers, Lovers, and Roadside Burials, Jared from American Reality, Poems and Stories, and Matthew from The Red Glass Cat. Looking forward to finding out more about all their new books here tonight, so stay tuned for readings from Alien Buddha Press in just a bit. And in the meantime, please be sure to subscribe to the channel while you're listening here on 17 Numa Radio. A reminder also that all past episodes of Songs of Selah can be found in the archive at 17numa.com. Thank you to everyone who supports the show by spreading the word and sharing episode links. Your support is greatly appreciated. Back when I was a boy riding around with my buddy as his dad drove us home from the baseball field, whenever we'd pass a cemetery, he told me to hold my breath, or else the spirits of the dead would enter my body through the lungs. I'd play along and pretend as if I believed such dire warnings, occasionally having to really go the distance if we happened to get stopped at a street light situated directly beside a graveyard. These days, I'm a bit more daring and open to the occult, so as I drove by a burial ground this morning, I took a big huff of oxygen, inhaling as many ghost fumes as possible because I'm constantly in search of the next fresh dose of inspiration, no matter where the energy might originate. It's a bit odd, though, because ever since the seance, I've had an intense craving for cornbread and black-eyed peas, as well as a strange urge to call Frank and tell him to turn the stove off. All I can think of now is, who the hell is Frank? That was Sucking Vapors, an excerpt from my forthcoming collaborative book, Evermore, which I've been writing during the past 2 years, along with my co-author, Mihaila Melnick, in Italy. We've been especially focused on the task at hand in recent months as we work to whip the collection into a completed form and tend to all the final, subtle details in the editing process. I'm excited about the book's eventual release later this spring through Concrete Mist Press. I also read that piece yesterday on an episode of Quintessential Listening, which I joined along with my great friends Heath Brocker and Don Biaquez to help celebrate World Poetry Day. It was an awesome time, and I was definitely stoked to take my host cap off for the show and just be able to lean back and listen to some amazing poetry. Big thank you to Michael Anthony Ingram for inviting me on. I'm pleased to share the good news that the 2021 Western Voices edition of Setu Mag has been published. It was an absolute pleasure serving as guest editor again this year for the third annual edition. Big thank you to Sunil Sharma and Anurag Sharma for the opportunity, and thank you to the 31 inspired poets whose contributions made the issue possible. Congratulations are also in order to everyone involved with Setu Mag for having recently reached and surpassed 2 million page views at their website, a well-deserved milestone for such a great venue that serves as a bridge between artists of the East and West. A link to the 2021 Western Voices edition of Setu Mag can also be found in a recent post at 17numa.com. I encourage anyone interested in keeping up with my work to subscribe to the site and keep in touch with me there. All right, that'll just about wrap things up here at the top of the show. I thought I'd close this segment out tonight by playing a recent collaboration with Greek pianist Elise Kaiser. She wrote the music for and produced this track that my poetry appears on. So let's listen to Elise Kaiser's production of It's a Matter of Record/Opinion before we head into a music break, and then we'll return on the other side with authors from Alien Buddha Press. Stay tuned.
Tell me something meaningful and make sure I believe it before you double down my debts. Then dance in your pride and vanity. Then dance in your ignorance and vanity. Then dance in your shaken identity. Then dance, then dance, then dance in vanity. Pat yourself on the back, pat me on the back, pat myself on the back, pat you on the back, pat us on the back, pat we on the back, pat them on the back. I take it all back. I take it all. There are ghosts in the system, ghosts in the visions, ghosts in the world, ghosts in your pores, ghosts pouring out. Smoke in your eye, smoke in your hair, smoke on your tongue, fire in your lungs, fire in your heart, fire, 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 always burn. Thin ice, thin ice. Thin ice. All your sins have been collected from a life you didn't live. So pray to the gods of big data and confess that your days have been numbered. Drifting through the endless stream, scrolling through the timeline of life, searching for the source to find connection. Tell me something meaningful in every single moment, and make sure I buy, but never sell out and down, down and out. Never doubt, never doubt, never doubt that there is destiny and there is dust in it. Thin air, thin air.
welcome back to Songs of Selah here on 17 Numa Radio. If there's anyone interested in appearing on a future episode, please feel free to get in contact with me via 17numa@gmail.com, and I'll be more than happy to get you set up for an interview coming up in the months ahead. Tonight we've got a great show lined up with authors from Alien Buddha Press, so I want to kick things off here by welcoming Red Fox, artist, photographer, poet, and editor-in-chief at Alien Buddha, to the show. Red, how you doing? How are things there in Arizona?
Oh, I'm great, Scott. Actually, Spartanburg, South Carolina now. We moved east after all the madness started last year. But
okay. Right on.
Going great.
Good deal. What's new with Alien Buddha? What have you got on the horizon at the moment?
I got a few things to mention right here. As of a couple days ago, Sunday, first day of spring, the Alien Buddha Skips the Party was released. That's a collection of introverted-themed poetry and fiction. The idea came my way by Donnie Winter, who was featured on our last show, a great poet. He came up with the idea, and he served as a guest editor on the project. And yeah, it's a collection of introverted-themed writing. It's available now. Features a lot of great writers. And I just wanted to, about some of our upcoming anthologies, anyone who follows me on social media might have heard a couple days ago, my 17-month-old daughter tipped over my old desktop, crashed the hard drive. So what this means for some of the anthologies in the works, the Alien Buddha gets a real job, and the last time the Alien Buddha got so high, those are anthologies with the theme being working, having a job in the workforce, and the other one is the third in the series of the Got So High trilogy. It's just basically about drugs. And yeah, so those anthologies, I'm going to reconstruct those documents out of my emails. I'm going to, see who was in it from the covers I've been making, and I'm just going to go back on my emails. I'm going to put it back together. So those aren't going to take any further steps from anybody involved. The deadlines are still out there on our pages for those. And for the April and May zine, I had versions uploaded already. So basically what it means for the next two editions of Alien Buddha zine, there won't be any edits. Now, the April version, pretty much edited all the way. I sent it out at the beginning of this month, and there was time for people to see it and everything, so that's not going to be much of a change. For the May zine, I uploaded a early draft, and I didn't get to send it out to anybody, and there's no PDF of that anywhere, not even in my emails to download or anything. So when that May version comes out, I'm going to be sending that one through, but it's going to be a highly discounted version online because I'm just throwing it out there. The May zine, unfortunately, not edited beyond my first run of edits. So yeah, that's basically that. Everyone else, if I have a book, if we're working on something together, nothing's really changed. I got my new desktop today. Our documents are in the emails. I can just re-download them again. So yeah, I'm not going to take up too much more time. We got poetry tonight from Amy and Jared and Matthew, and it's going to be a great show. And I thank you again, Scott, for having us on.
Yeah, absolutely. Always a great time when your authors come on here. So I'm looking forward to it. And if you wanted to do another one with one of those anthologies coming out later this year, let me know and we'll get that set up.
Yeah, absolutely. I will be. I'll be in touch.
Awesome. And glad to hear you got a new computer there. Hope things
Oh,
are,
yeah. I used my Biden bucks to get myself a new one.
Right on. Good deal, man. All right, Red, we'll have a good rest of your night, and we'll dive in here.
Thanks, Scott. I'll be listening in.
All right, my friend. All
Have a
right,
good one.
so we've got 3 poets lined up to share work from their new books coming up this evening. And as Red just mentioned, first up is going to be Amy Solo. So I'd like to welcome Amy to the show. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, Scott. I'm doing great. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Pleasure to have you on. Where are you calling us from?
Thanks. I'm calling in from Olympia, Washington.
Okay.
It's nice and sunny out here today.
Very nice. Some spring weather. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your interest in poetry and writing and the arts, how you got involved, and ultimately what led to this new book, Mothers, Lovers, and Roadside Burials.
Awesome. Yeah, so I work and write in Olympia, Washington, and I teach creative writing. You know, I'm always teaching lots of things, and I've been a poet for a long time, working on things both in New Jersey and then when I moved out here to the Pacific Northwest. So a lot of my work has to do with the coasts and the experience of the difference of East Coast, West Coast. I work with kids. I work with performance poets. I just spread the good word of poetry wherever I go. And I served as Olympia's first poet laureate in 2017 and 2018, and got involved with bringing poetry into the visual arts realm and just getting Olympia a poetry scene in the dots. So that's what I'm doing out here.
Very cool. Congratulations on that great honor. What were some of the types of projects or community programs that you were able to do during that time as Poet Laureate?
Yeah, well, I mean, Olympia has a really great arts community to begin with. So building on just the need for poetry in the community. We put poetry on buses. We put poetry at bus stops. We sprayed poetry on the sidewalks. We just had community calls for poetry and stamped it basically everywhere we could.
Awesome. Yeah, get the message out any way possible.
Yeah. Yep.
So you talked about
poetry.
moving. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So poetry, it's an introverted thing sometimes. So it's good to bring it out into view.
Absolutely, and I'm glad that you have a good community of artists up in that area. You had talked about moving from the East Coast to the West Coast. What are some of those differences that you found being out in the West now?
Yeah, so I've been living in the Pacific Northwest now for about 15 years. And I think for me, my connection to the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean growing up in a beach town in New Jersey, it always grounded me. I knew what to do. So coming out to the West Coast and the cold Washington Pacific Ocean is a lot more intimidating and maybe a little unfriendly at times. But I'm learning to understand and love what it's like to be a Washingtonian. And the pandemic really helped me out with that as well, because I didn't travel at all over the last year. And I dug in and I said, I'm going to learn everything I possibly can about the Pacific Ocean and the Northwest and the temperate rainforests and the native species. And it's just, the world is colorful again, and it's really cool.
Yeah, very cool. Sounds like an exciting journey down the rabbit hole you've been going on. Has that been showing up in your writing and poetry of late, those topics?
It has been, especially, in my next collection that I've been working on called Wild Sonnets from the Underground Forest. At the beginning of the pandemic, I said, you know what, first I said to myself, well, this sucks. And then I said, you know what, I need to do something else that sucks even more. So I started a practice of writing a sonnet a day. And that grew. That grew over the last year. And I've gotten some really good visuals out of it. So I've been working on a collection of sonnets from my experiences in Washington.
That's quite a task to dedicate oneself to. It takes a lot of discipline to stay focused writing something that detailed all the time.
Yeah. It's not my natural wheelhouse, so it was cool to step up to that challenge.
Yeah, awesome. Expand the horizons. So that's your next collection coming out. Tell us a little bit about Mothers, Lovers, and Roadside Burials. What are the themes behind this collection, and what led you to put it together?
Awesome. So Mothers, Lovers, and Roadside Burials has been 10 years in the works, and it's my debut collection. It used to be 2 different collections until one day I realized that what I was working on in different directions were actually had a similar thread. And then it all kind of came together. And I was able to let some things go and build on other things. And what it is, without being too pretentious, it's an experiment in kind of surrealist poetry in that I wanted to look at myself, break myself down into pieces and tell the story of the experience of different body parts, places in my body, places of being, so that the stories came out to the stories in the poems tell of like who I am piece by piece, different angles and dimensions. And that's how Mothers, Lovers, and Roadside Burials came to be. Mothers, because I know that we are mothered in a lot of different ways by a lot of different people. And sometimes we're the ones doing the mothering. Lovers, because that's the middle part. Lovers, because, there's just so much that you hang on to when you have a lover, and it's wonderful and terrible and sweet and vicious all at the same time, or at different times, depending on how you remember it. And then the Roadside Burials came out of my reading of Clarissa Pinkola Estes' Women Who Run with the Wolves, and she talks about the practice of burying small things on the side of the road that just need to be let go in order to move on, to heal, to take the next step. And that just seemed to be the perfect way to tie all of these pieces together. The last section of Roadside Burials, I think, holds some of the most powerful punches of the bunch, just the things that need to be buried and let go.
So a 10-year process bringing the book to life. Now that it's finally out into the world, it must be an exciting time for you. How has the reception from family and friends and colleagues been so far, and what are your own personal reflections now that it's released?
Yes, friends and colleagues for sure are enjoying the work. I know that one colleague will say, I can only read a few poems at a time because it's like taking this bitter medicine that I know I need, but I can't take too much of, right? I can only take a sip at a time and let it sit. And I love that analogy because I think that's what good poetry does. It makes you stop after a few and wonder and go, okay, how is that working through me? The reception has been really positive and honest, right? I know there's some raw chords here, and people tell me about it, and that's good to hear.
Well, that's great, and it's always nice when the reader has that personal engagement with it and leads them into their own thought processes and reflecting and resonating with it. So glad to hear that the reception has been positive so far, and congratulations on the book. And I'm going to turn the floor over to you now and let you read some selections from it.
Okay. And can I ask, how much time do I have?
You've got about 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay, amazing. All right, let's get rolling then. Okay, the first poem I'm going to read tonight is called Things I Did While You Were Sleeping. The things I said I wouldn't do, the laundry, the dishes. I wrote this book while you were sleeping. Because when you're awake, you need all of me, and I need all of me. To nurse you, to wonder at you, scrub the counters, wrap the presents, laid fresh linen on the table. I watched your breathing, listened for your subtle rhythms, swept your hair across your forehead, out of your eyes, waited in the dark and marveled. I went to Al-Anon. Somebody said to search my soul, so I did. I paced the hardwood floor, paced the sidewalk, stroked the dog. I had a conversation with every part of myself to see if I could lay some of the stories to rest and ask where the soul was or what it looked like. And this is what it said. The next poem I'm going to read is called Cheekbone. This is from my grandmother, who would drop off cases of makeup for me when I was a teenager without giving me any instruction on how to use it. Cheekbone. Apply the rouge upward toward the temple. Vampy, not trampy. The case of lipsticks should have at least one color that will complement your natural earthiness, your smoky lungs, your astigmatism. Bangs will hide your acne and avoid the sun while the chemical peel is on. You won't need a nose job unless you keep aging. Eyesight is overrated. Lay your glasses on the table whenever possible. Brand label side out. Wonder if she meant to teach me how to be a lady or highlight my failures. Witch's tip. The last time I was 20, I couldn't cut you off. How righteous. Makes me unique. Gives me prophetic sight. Will prevent cancer. The first time I initiated a kiss with a delicious stranger, and his hand slipped up my spine, ran along ribs, and moved northward, only to stutter and jerk at the feel of you. It's good luck, I said. The physician assistant can hack it off, the nurse says. Old people do it all the time, she says. Get the cautery machine, she says. So I, too, can grow weary of a gift. Even without you, my coven smells me. Wherever I go, women take me in, and another has sprouted in your place. Wonder if you'll lose your intuition, or loose your intuition. So these first 4 are from the mothers section. Like I said, I thought about all the different ways we are mothered and we do our mothering. Liver. Lily-livered with a quiver lip, arrow tips lodged between my teeth, gums a bloodbath pickled by an insatiable thirst for escaping the noble truths. That I will suffer at the feet of my own desires, grow old, and die. A filter for cowardice. Will I ever be a mother and an artist all at once? And if I can't be both, which is it safer to be? And the last one I'm going to read from the Mothers section is called November 12th, 2016. Negative spaces hold the most truth. Slumped on a third-floor balcony on the Pacific coast, the sun sets on the old world, and clouds collude to shape a prehistoric great white shark, tailing a toy ocean liner. The wind escalates the chase, cosmic bodies jettison the boat, and the celestial behemoth bears its endless rows of teeth to the passengers who've yet to jump. The last light fades to reveal inky flesh as predator and prey become one beast in the night sky. Like this ocean, I so desperately want to love, but can't. All galaxies have massive black holes in their hearts. At twilight, I can't see the Pacific, only hear the slow groan of her inhale, sucking surf deeply into her lungs for miles, trying to fill the unknown with patches crafted from salt and kelp. I fear and respect her. Imagine walking right into her, a shiny bauble to stitch into her wound dressing. We've come to an inconvenient truce. Our love is crafted like a mixtape, true, timeless friendship. I can show up when I need her, and she never turns me away. She's always angry with something. Gravitational pull, 2 degrees Celsius, whale pods. Sometimes it's me. Where have I been? What took me so long, she says. I've been thinking about you the whole time. Isn't that enough? I say. So this is your life now, she says. Yes. We breathe together, a labored, rolling gulp. How does it end? I ask. Violent currents swirl in the abyss, and the echo spatters my toes. Promise me, she demands. Waves shatter like glass windows from Philadelphia skyscrapers on concrete below. Promise me you will not send your children off to war. Hold them and tumble them. Tell them stories. Let them play. Catch them in your net and toss them back so they too may know true love. How can I make a promise like that? I promise. She curls her tongue back, dragging sand dollars and razor clams carefully into her soul. My next poem is titled Upper Lip. Can't stop tonguing the center. Shifting lower incisors pin you down in your place. The quick bite puffs, reddens, sloughs crisp flakes for wet curves and curls split ends. Contracting around the thought of what to say to you, shaping vowels, and you know what, and miscreant twitches. Wonder if you have the courage to hurt another, or if you already made up your mind. The next 2 are from the lovers section. Dermis. Your triglyceride levels are turning me on, and skin so snappable, if I pull the dermis taut and release, it would not peak or fester under my thumb. You're so hydrated, and can I jump into your cholesterol chart? Wonder if a colonoscopy is in order, or if your beauty is only skin deep. Tongue. Remember when you used to wrestle other tongues for fun? Slimy blind slugs bumping into each other, little circles flicking the rim of the lover's mouth, sometimes remora, mostly gooey duck, razor clam, mollusks that squirt. More than thighs and hands, this is the place that knows you, that resists or gives, spreads like a wave, dragging sand back to its belly, one sucking mouthful at a time. The last 2 poems are from the Roadside Burial section. Ass. Your ass is the size of the moon. Line up orbit, planets, asteroids, move aside. She's coming through. Your ass could break a bastard in half. Your ass would crunch my head like a walnut. I could land a spaceship on your ass and plant a flag and hit golf balls into your gravitational pull. It's true. My ass changes tides, and my ass spreads like sunrise in a forward bend. Wonder if you need more wall squats in your life, or more more yoga pants. And my last poem for the night is I Am the Shot. I am the shot. In the paint, under pads, stick, knees frozen, lift until the crack of clavicle hitting ice ends the shift. Avoiding collapse, barricaded in the band room, military school because you idolized your grandpa, not because you were hoodlum, ghetto trash, yet we're sending you to academy so you don't go to prison. Shed recognition like snakeskin, hazed at home, at school, between blows, your beater asks, arms and spit flailing. How long are you going to lay down and take it? Bare-ass German doctors' cold hands inject Agent Orange, anthrax, pain cocktail, needles big as your forearm, thick as oil thieves, mistaken for a rapist. How can any boy tell one 6-foot white male in a lineup from another? Bullets over Iraq, backing barrel of rifle in that Iraqi boy's chest. Back the fuck up. No one touches these guns, will fucking kill you. Jameson neatest, after the third shot, exit bar somehow, climb into truck somehow, drive in slow motion, hitting something, slumping, slunk, slurring hard as your face grinds into the dirt in our yard. Neighbors' porches, somebody has you in an arm bar. The off-duty cop that trailed you lays on top of you, asks me, is he yours? Holding infant close, that last shot was the one that went off in the dark, that shot out our windows, that flipped my switch to point of no return. That last shot was the one that ended us.
Wow, fantastic work. All those
Thanks,
poems
Scott.
were excellent. Really enjoy your voice and your style. It has a very conversational tone to it, so I can see how readers get lost and into the verses.
Cool. Thanks. That was awesome.
Absolutely. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing here tonight. If people want to find where's the best place to order a copy of your book, or if they want to find out more about your work, where can they check out?
Excellent. Yeah, go ahead and you can find Mothers, Lovers, and Roadside Burials on Amazon or at Alien Buddha Press. You can find out more about me at amysolo.com. You can, if you happen to be in Olympia, Washington, you can grab your own copy of Mothers, Lovers, and Roadside Burials at Orca Books or Browser's Books. Lots of different places.
All right, very cool, and hope everyone will go check out a copy of Mothers, Lovers, and Roadside Burials. Fantastic poems, and all the best with your continued journey of becoming a Washingtonian.
Hey, thank you so much.
All right. Have a great spring ahead, Amy.
Thanks, you too.
All right, so that was Amy Solo, and we've got two more readers coming up here tonight, Jared Morningstar and Matthew Ussia, who will be joining the program later. First, we're going to go to a music break, and I'm a somewhat paranoid person by nature, but outside my room right now where I'm recording, there's a cicada that's been going crazy, so I hope that isn't bothering anyone, and we'll be back on the other side.
When the wind picked up, the fire spread, and the grapevine seemed left for dead, and the northern sky looked like the end of days. Wake-up call to a rented room sounded like an alarm of impending doom, to warn us it's only a matter of time before we all burn. Before we all burn. Before we
ocean air fan the flames, but I couldn't think of anywhere I would have rather been to watch it all burn away. Double shifts with prayers for rain on their lips, and they knew it was only a matter of time.
Welcome back to Songs of Selah. We're continuing on with our readings from authors at Alien Buddha Press, and next up is poet and professor, former guest here on the show, Jared Morningstar. How are things going with you, Jared?
Things are going well, Scott. How about with you?
Glad to hear it. Yeah, things are good here. Some great weather here the last few days to welcome in spring, so staying inspired.
That's awesome. We actually had some really good weather up here today, too. I know it's Michigan, and everyone's like, cold, but we're close to 70 degrees here today, so it's definitely starting to feel like spring. It's perfect weather for me, so I definitely appreciate that.
Awesome. Yeah, glad to hear that y'all are having some better weather up north these days.
Yeah.
How are things
Absolutely.
going with your teaching here lately?
Things are going all right. Our particular district started up on the 1st of March, face-to-face. So after, several months of virtual teaching, it's a little different getting back there into the classroom and working with kids. And, I think, even though the, vaccinations are starting to roll out and, numbers are starting to drop in certain places around the country anyway. A little bit of the anxiety was still there. You wonder how rusty you are. But once I started working with the kids again, it was basically old hat, like riding a bike. It's been fun. It's been a lot of fun.
Very cool. Glad to hear that things are transitioning back into place, because after a year off, that is quite a transition. How has it been for the students with them getting back in there? Can you tell?
Yeah, definitely. I think that for the most part, they're really happy to be back. The mode that we're in right now is a hybrid mode. So the building is always at half capacity, and my classes are smaller, and we have to space desks out, and we have to wear masks, and we're always sanitizing, using hand sanitizer into the room, out of the room. So a lot of new protocols to get used to, and I think that while the kids might have been maybe a little bit lukewarm at the beginning towards being back, I think that they're really excited to be back now. I think we're just getting into the groove. So it's been great. It's really been great for, I think, everybody. So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Socialization is the natural order of humanity, so it's good that things are returning to normal.
Yeah, sure is.
It'll be good for the psychology of the future generations as well as we get things back in line. So what's been going on with your poetry and your writing of late? Any new projects? Of course, you have the new book that you're going to be reading from, but what else have you been working on?
You know what, Scott? Ever since the new book, I haven't written that much. I've written one poem since the new book. Now, a few of the pieces that I've written prior to the book coming out are starting to roll out in anthologies. I actually just received my copy of Alien Buddha Skips the Party, and I have a piece in there called Gravedigger that I'm really proud of. It's about an introverted gravedigger who only likes to work at night and gets paranoid when he sees anything living. He's more at peace in his loneliness. So it's a different kind of introversion poem. I had a piece published in Death by Punk, the first anthology from Dumpster Fire Press. Really proud of that. Mike Zone did a great job, and had a piece in there. And I also have a piece that's being published in an upcoming anthology called Moving Images, which is an anthology dedicated to film and cinema. And I have a piece that it was inspired by Pulp Fiction, but was ultimately is a call to think about, for folks to think about what they see on the screen instead of just like showing up for the explosions and the violence and the action, because there are lessons to be learned from good art. I know you can appreciate that one. But those are all pieces that a lot of those were pieces that I had written prior to the book's release. The new book combines a lot of the work that I've been working on over the last few months, and hopefully, once things settle down a little bit at work, I get a chance to write a little bit more. But right now, I'm just looking forward to getting some publicity out for the new book that I'm really, really proud of it. And so this is actually one of my first stops on my little publicity tour, I guess you could say. So I'm really happy to be here today.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we're glad you're here, and all the best with the rest of that journey ahead, getting the word out. American Fries, your debut book, had a pretty strong reception. People were really digging it and enjoying it when that one came out. Here with the follow-up, American Reality, Poems and Stories, was this a continuation of themes from the first book, and was this material that you were already working on as the first book came out? How did that all fall into place?
That's a really good question. The first book, American Fries, I might have even referred to it this way the last time I was on the show. American Fries, while it ended up being relatively thematically consistent and focused on America, it was in large part a happy accident. A lot of the pieces in American Fries, especially the fiction, date back, some of them years. And when I put that book together, originally I was thinking, well, this is going to be the only book I put out for years because I'm not all that prolific. And I thought it would just be kind of like a collection of everything I had written. And then as I was going over the material for American Fries, I realized that it kind of painted America, the culture of America, the history, the politics, all that stuff, in broad brushstrokes. And then I thought when that came out, well, that's it. And then I just started writing, and I kept writing more and more material. And, apparently I just really like writing about America because this book, I think, American Reality, is truly a follow-up to the first book in a sense. It does talk about American politics, maybe more about politics in this book than the previous book. But I think that where the last book was accidental in the way it all kind of magically came together, this book was much more focused. And as I was compiling pieces for this thing, a lot of them it's much more tightly consistent, thematically cohesive, and I think it's a darker look at America than the first book. And I know the first book has themes scattered throughout, but I really do think that this is the darker of the two books. It deals with a lot of issues that have been taking place within the last year, whether it's the pandemic or Trumpism or some really grotesque stuff like child beauty pageants and corporate culture, destroying mom and pop, all that kind of stuff. So it's probably a more damning portrait of the country that we live in. But I think even though, like you were saying, that Fry's had a really nice rollout, and I feel like a lot of people love Fry's, and I love American fries too, looking back at it. But I'm really proud of this one. This, I think, of the two was done more purposefully, and I think that it's the bigger labor of love, and I really think it's the better book, to be honest. I'm really, really proud of this.
Well, that's a fantastic summation of the collection. A lot of important themes you mentioned right there, especially when you talk about the mom and pop stores going out of business. I think that might be one of the ultimately biggest concerns of everything that's happened in the end, because those don't just come magically back, and we'll see how it all plays out. But definitely want to get into hearing some of these poems. I'm excited. Last time you were on, read some great pieces, so I know you've got a lot up your sleeve here for us tonight, Jared, and I'm going to turn things over to you now and let you hit us with some work from American reality, poems and stories.
All right, excellent. And to get us started, I'm actually going to read a very short flash fiction piece. It's the title piece of the book. It's called American Reality. Here's this very allegorical flash fiction piece. He stared into the pine-covered distance where a golden bear that looked like it was blessed by Midas emerged from the shadows. Mesmerized by its giant frame, trophies in his eyes and on his mind, he could almost smell the leather interior of the brand-new car he'd buy and almost ignore his empty pockets. Rifle at his side, he gravitated towards it, each suspense weight step heavier than the last. He stopped, aimed, fired, hit his mythical target, but like an angry god, it roared, stood strong, and turned to face its pathetic attacker, who was desperate to inherit its power. Their eyes discovered each other. He no longer saw Fort Knox, but a monster. It began to lumber toward him at a quickening pace. Its every step rumbled the earth and shook the pines. He tried to fire again, and again, but the behemoth wouldn't fall, and it was too late to flee. Within seconds, the golden bear took his pitiful body to the ground. He felt his bones break and his pride dissipate. How could I have been so arrogant? What makes me think I even had a chance? It was his final encompassing thought as the monster's jaw relentlessly closed around his neck. So, a little bit of allegory to start us off. The second piece that I'm going to read is the first poem in the book, and it riffs a little bit on an old Buddy Holly song. The poem is called Learning the Game. And at the beginning of the piece, I cite some Buddy Holly lyrics that I'll read right now before I get into the poem itself. When she says that you're the only one she'll ever love, but then you find you are not the one she's thinking of, that's when you're learning the game. And so now the poem starts. Just before the plane crashes into the frozen Iowa ground, you realize you'll never play another concert hall. Set the nation on fire again with those 6 strings on that gorgeous Stratocaster. Make American youth believe that you are some horn-rimmed musical Clark Kent who's here to make them dance, to give them hope that they, too, can live the dream. It's then you remember that the only reason your life is about to end, the reason you'll never hold your beautiful wife again, is because you had to go on tour, take that flight to make up for the money that management bastards kept from you, stole from you through bad contracts and backstabbing. and it hits you seconds before your fantasy ends that you're just another working-class boy from Lubbock who was fooled into believing that you really mattered by those who have gorged themselves on the fortune you earned and will continue to feast on it long after you're buried in the cold earth that will soon take your last breath. It's then, my friend, that you're learning the game. This next piece is probably, writing this is the most fun I've ever had writing a poem. This piece is called Boneless Wings and Republican Jesus. For real, though, to hell with boneless wings. Half the fun of eating wings is tearing the meat off the bone. And what's up with the breading? Makes for an entirely different consistency. They're nothing but glorified chicken nuggets. Same bland taste with a more expensive price tag. Seriously, how can these fools not see through the lie? Then again, some time ago, folks believed in a fountain of youth, a city of gold, that the earth is the center of the universe, that the earth is flat. Oh, wait, some still do, huh? Just as some still believe that the moon landing was an illusion, that Sandy Hook was a hoax, that we live in a post-racial society just because we elected a mixed-race president, that being gay is an abomination. The same folks who refuse to believe in evolution, but think that, somehow, their love your neighbor, Lord and Savior, who preached that wealth wouldn't save souls, was a secret social Darwinist who drank from golden cups and would turn the other cheek to urban poverty, because those bums should have pulled themselves up by their bootstraps. Of course folks believe that saucy nuggets are chicken wings. Some folks will believe anything. This next poem I have never read out loud to an audience before. This piece is called You Say You Want a Revolution. Whoever said that actions speak louder than words was right. But as long as words define actions, the man behind the curtain, the cable news sycophant, the President of the United States remains our greatest threat. So before you bring out that guillotine like a modern-day Robespierre, before you bring that AR-15 to a peaceful protest like some 2020 cheap imitation of a Wild West vigilante, before you hijack a righteous power movement by stealing that great value TV from your local Walmart, know that you are feeding the beast that oppresses you. It'll strike you down without lifting a finger from the comfort of its throne, from a king-size bed in its underground bunker, from a flight to North Korea aboard Air Force One. For no matter how loudly your actions speak, the tyrant-in-chief and its cronies always have the biggest megaphone and a mindless army to do their bidding. We know you want a revolution, friend. We all do. But we need to see the plan, one that turns their own strength against them, one that utilizes the pen, not the sword. This next poem is called Dead End. And I have to say that of all of the pieces I've ever written, poetry anyway, this might be my favorite. This is my favorite of the COVID poems in the book. Dead End. You used to love driving at night to escape ghosts and mundane realities. The road meant happiness in the form of exit ramps and taillights of fellow midnight Kerouacs in the distance ahead. Like you, they knew the world's greatest love song was the hum of the engine and the percussion of tires on pavement, with some Willie Nelson playing on the radio. The welcoming thought that a good night's sleep could be found at a mom-and-pop motel, and that a cup of coffee, a club sandwich, or both could be served by a smiling waitress at any hour, where street lights, that gorgeous neon, appeared on the horizon. Even the smell of gasoline during an early AM fill-up would make your heart beat faster, for as long as that motor was running, you felt alive. But the highway is dead now. Those city lights don't shine anymore. The 24-hour diners are closed. The jukeboxes no longer play. You're lucky if you can find an open McDonald's drive-thru where a masked worker nervously accepts your card and gives you a greasy burger and fries that you now wonder if you should even eat. And there's no room at the Motor Inn. It's closed, perhaps permanently. You can't tell. But you sure know the road no longer feels like home. Home is where you're stuck in late-night silence. You no longer have the miles ahead to look forward to when the sun rises. Instead, when your weary head hits the pillow, all you can do is pray in loneliness that life will return one day to the interstates, that this dead end isn't forever, and that when you wake up, you'll still be able to breathe. And the final poem that I'm going to be reading was inspired by the music of one of my favorite artists, Jason Isbell, and the 400 Unit. This piece is called Thank You for Helping Me Learn How to Be a Real Man. Thank you for telling us that you don't know what being a real man means, because now I don't feel so alone. I've always preferred guitars over guns, and it made me an outcast growing up in a town where schools choose to celebrate deer season over Dr. King, violence and death over peace and love. Thank you for helping me understand that it's okay for men to cry, to be vulnerable, that strength isn't always about sucking it up, keeping up a granite countenance when inside you're a house of cards on a windy day, for telling me in rhyme that my day will come, that even on the hardest of days to remember that things will get easier, that they can do so without the bottle or pills. Thanks for helping me see that as beautiful as the open road can be, there is no shame in being tired of traveling alone, but also for showing me that a real man lets a woman drive too, that no relationship can thrive when one person is relegated to the passenger seat, and that when the road gets rocky, you can't just run away with your eyes closed, that if you want her to be your crutch when you can't stand on your feet, sometimes you better be willing to put her first, to let her take the wheel. And thanks for showing me that real strength is not found in a clenched fist, but in your character, in selflessness over selfishness, in asking what you have done to help others instead of what others have done to help you. That real men aren't afraid to stand up for what they believe in, that they don't just shut up and sing, but that they don't need a club or a sword when a pen, a paintbrush, a microphone will send a louder message, one that solves problems instead of starting them or making them worse. You need to know that I am listening, that you aren't just writing sad songs, riffing on that 59 Les Paul, giving the audience a 90-minute escape from their everyday realities. You aren't just a rock star, artist, or a storyteller. You're a healer, an inspiration, an educator. And for helping teach me how to be a better husband to my wife, father to my children, and man, a real man, in a world that needs them. Thank you. Thank you.
Fantastic work. Once again, Jared, appreciate you.
Thank you.
Sharing all those pieces. To hell with boneless wings, tearing the meat off the bone. It's how fun, really. Dug those lines.
I appreciate that. They're so funny. It's proof that poems can sometimes come from the craziest of inspirations. I saw a town hall, I think it was on YouTube in Nebraska, where this guy just goes off about how boneless wings are saucy nuggets. And I'm like, yeah, I totally feel that way. And so I just thought I'd write about it, and it ended up spiraling into this conspiracy theory poem. So it was a lot of fun to write.
Right on. Just got to take the inspiration where it comes and follow the trail wherever it may go. Sometimes down rabbit hole.
That's right, man.
Well, where can people go if they want to find out more about your work and pick up a copy of the book?
Excellent. First of all, the book is available for purchase on Amazon.com. But you can also get in touch with me if you want to get a signed copy or personalized copy. You can find me at jaredmorningstar.org. I also have a Facebook author page, J Morningstar Writer, and I am on Goodreads, goodreads.com/JaredMorningstar. My contact information is on my website, jaredmorningstar.org. You can just drop me a message if you are interested in a signed or personalized copy, and I'd be happy to do that for you. Or you can go the Amazon route; it's right there for sale as we speak. So I'm really proud of it, and I hope that some of you decide to pick it up. I think you'll enjoy it.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on the new book. Always a pleasure to talk with you, Jared, and I appreciate you swinging by here as the first stop on your upcoming reading tour, and all the best with the upcoming shows.
Well, thank you, Scott. I really appreciate it, and thank you for giving all of us a voice. It's never been more important.
It's my pleasure. Appreciate it, Jared. Have a great rest of your night.
You too, man. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, we've got one more reader coming up on the other side of this music break. Matthew Ussia will be joining the program, and we'll be back with his reading in just a bit.
He said, I'm gonna buy this place and burn it down. I'm gonna put it 6 feet underground. He said, I'm gonna buy this place and watch it fall. Stand here beside me, baby, in the crumbling walls. Oh, I'm gonna buy this place and start a fire. Stand here until I feel all your heart's desire. Because I'm gonna buy this place and see it burn, and do back the things it did to you in return. If you can tell me something worth
watch the orange glow. Some will laugh, but some just sit and cry. She just sits down there and you wonder why. So I'm gonna buy a gun and start a war. If you can tell me something worth fighting for, and I'm gonna buy this place, is what I said. Blame it upon a rush of blood to the head, up to the head. All the movements we started to make see me crumble on my face, and I know the mistakes that I made. See it all disappear without trace. Don't be caught up in beckoning you on. They say silence needs to go on. So meet me by the bridge, or meet me by the lake. When am I gonna see that pretty face again? Or meet me on the road, or meet me where I said. Blame it all upon a rush of blood to the head.
Welcome back to Songs of Selah here on 17 Numa Radio. Having a great time this evening with authors from Alien Buddha Press. I want to thank Red Fox once again for setting things up, and we've heard some great poetry so far from Amy Solo and Jared Morningstar. And now I want to welcome our final reader of the night to the program, Matthew Ussia. Welcome aboard Songs of Selah. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me. And I got to say, even if I botch this reading tonight, I know at least I got to go buy Jared and Amy's books. So.
Right on. Those were great readings so far. And speaking of botching things, have I been saying your last name correctly?
Well, so here's the insider skinny on how to pronounce my last name. One thing, I get a narcissistic pleasure like you won't believe listening to people struggle with it and have anxiety about it. And two, I was at an academic conference a couple of years ago, and I was sitting just at a luncheon, and I found out the guy sitting across me was not only an Italian professor, but he was from Italy. And so I just kind of pulled up my name tag and I was like, hey, how would you say this? And first thing he said to me was, is that Sicilian or Calabresian? And I was like, okay, this guy knows his stuff. And I was like, Calabresian, and he said it in a way I'd never heard it before. So I don't even know how to say my name, I guess is what I'm saying. So I don't sweat it. I don't sweat the. So I actually don't tell people because I do enjoy listening to people have anxiety about it. So.
Right on, fair enough. I hope I gave you some good kicks here tonight.
Oh, yeah, it was good. It was nice.
All right, man.
I do this to my students, too, and it drives them nuts.
Where are you calling us from? Where do you call home?
I am in Pittsburgh in the Pennsylvania. which made me realize this being I wrote this book very much from my own immediate experience, and so I realized I should have had more footnotes of all of the Pittsburghese and Pittsburghosity that I'm going to read poems about.
Okay, right on. You mentioned your students there. Are you a professor up there in Pittsburgh?
I am a professor up there in Pittsburgh, so there's been this nice unified, we got the alien Buddha thing going on, we have the teacher thing going on, so yeah.
Okay, very cool. And tell us a little bit about how you got interested in poetry and writing, and what led to this new book of yours, The Red Glass Cat.
Well, I got to say, my interest in writing really sprung out of a failed 16-year-old attempt at being a death metal singer. Some friends and I, we were going to have a band, and we thought, man, if we just get 20 minutes of material together, we can open for, like, cool bands or whatever. Just total 16-year-old, like, fantasy, not knowing how much, like, a PA costs to do rehearsals, not actually knowing anybody that could play drums. But we had a logo, and I was writing lyrics, and even though that dream died, I just kept writing, and then, I don't know, academia got in the way, and then after all these years of being so careful and so meticulous and so agonizing over academic writing, I always had these, like, leftover thoughts, these memories I can't get rid of, and those things become poems, and yeah, I just decided, Alien Buddha had the open reading period. I said, you know what, spring is going to be the busiest semester in my 15 years in teaching. Why not launch a book too? Why not throw a book launch on top of everything else? And yeah, it's been wonderful. I'll never do that again. Should have waited till summer. Yeah.
So this new collection that you have out, how long has it been in the works? What type of themes went into it, and what initially led you, I guess you said, sort of a balance act against academia? So is this where you let loose with some other aspect of your personality?
I think so, though I do ruin it and take it too seriously. But so this is my debut collection. And some of these poems are 20 years old in here that I've been working on. I mean, I had decided finally maybe 4 or 5 years ago, okay, I'm going to take this seriously. I will say at 16, I started writing lyrics. When I was 36, I wrote a poem that finally came out in my head sounding as good on the paper as it did in my head. In fact, that's the first poem I'm going to read tonight. And so I built this binder out of all of these notes, and I had about 100 poems that I maybe showed 3 or 4 other human beings. And I eventually did start trying to get some stuff out there in some online journals. I got sucked into a couple poetry groups. I'm also an editor for something called the Beautiful Cadaver Project's social justice anthologies, which kind of entrenched me even more into the world of poetry. And I finally decided, you know what, it's time for my coming out party. And so here I am. And as far as the themes go, yeah, it's the other part about it is the pandemic. In the lack of a present and not really knowing if there's going to be a future, I've had a lot of time in this house to think about the past and to sort of revisit these moments and revisit these memories. And so, in the absence of going anywhere, I worked a lot on these poems and kind of finally polished them up. And, it's me letting loose. It's me, what are the spare thoughts that I have on the table? I do the scholarly stuff. I, always teach 4 classes every semester, and I always put so much into, what I give the students that I was like, yeah, but there's still these other thoughts that I can't let go. And maybe, poetry is just kind of where they end up. the table scraps of my mind, really.
Speaking of your students there, have you shared the collection with any of them? What's the response been on that level, and also from friends and anyone in particular?
So I somehow one of my students found out, and there's a very nice piece on me or profile of me in the student newspaper, and so perhaps some people have read some. I don't know, but family and friends, it has been weird. These really intimate, private thoughts. Again, some of which I held on to for a decade or more, 2 decades. I had this. I used to have this anxiety that I was gonna die in utter obscurity, and these thoughts were never going to get out. And then the night after I got the email from Red saying, "Hey, here's a contract. Let's put a book out." I think at about 3 a.m, I woke up and thought, "Oh my God, people are actually going to read these things now. What am I going to do?" But the response has been super positive, and I'm going to be reading next month at my alma mater, and I'm going to be reading as part of a prestigious poetry series here in Pittsburgh this summer, and some guy wants to try to get a review of my book into the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and so it's been wonderful. I've even sort of having this collection out and these poems out have in some ways changed how I even thought or felt about the past and felt about these memories. So it's been really positive all around.
Yeah, that's fantastic. All the great reception and upcoming events already set up, and certainly a testament to stick-to-itiveness after 20 years, putting the final touches on it and actually sending it out into the world. So kudos on that accomplishment, and looking forward to hearing some of your work here tonight. So I'm going to turn things over to you and let you be about that business.
All right, rock and roll. So the first poem I'm going to read, Pittsburgh reference number 1, there's an elementary school named Menadeo Elementary, and this is the true story of how it got to be named that. This is called St. John Menadeo. Whenever I see a crossing guard's bright yellow raincoat, I think of St. John Menadeo. The car, brakes failed, rolling out of control down Hazelwood Avenue. The driver, honking, flailing one arm out the window. John, pushing the last classmate out of the way. A split second before martyrdom. Poem number 2 came to me almost complete in a dream. It's called At the Moment He Was Conceived. At the moment he was conceived, his father, who had paused at the Franciscan seminary, emptied himself after swimming in a sea of sheets and skin, saw a reflection in his wife's pupils. One could only hope the moment was not ruined, contemplating divine judgment over choosing the wrong kind of biblical ecstasy. The boy, whose only memory of his father was set in a cancer ward, told me stories of an evil stepfather and the 1,000 invisible daggers passed around the dinner table. Years later, at the boy's wedding, his mother told me the story of the time he called on a landline from the very same college campus that separated them decades prior. His voice was so much like his father's, she momentarily forgot what era it was and who she was talking to. At that moment, in my mind, I heard the sound of a branch breaking. And, of course, I had to text that guy and let him know, hey, guess what I just wrote a poem about. The next one's called The Secret City, the Pittsburgh reference number 2. There used to be a spot, loading dock down at the Allegheny River called Certain Death, and it was a place where punks used to have generator shows and all that fun stuff. Punk mass ends with the sign of peace between friends and a 5 passed across the merch table to help the touring bands find the shadows of Cleveland or Philadelphia. Out of the rock room with a cloud of secondhand smoke into cool, thick night air, the silence of Polish Hill, the ringing ocean of sounds inside a car the seconds before it starts. This is the skyline of the secret city, whose citizenry are eager to trade sleep for a spectacle on a school night. On the ride home, shows pass into memory on their way to legend. The tour tape on my front seat, permanent artifact of the intimacies of the scene, bands ripping holes in time on these breathless nights. Tomorrow, I'll be in a meeting trying to compose a strategic plan, trying to impress the administration, and counting the hours to the next show, trying to relive what I just saw. The lights on a rain-wet Penn Avenue blink yellow as the thousands of slumbering domestic dramas of the East End float by. I push the gas a little harder on the way to my own domestic tranquility, Nell and Libby waiting warm in our bed. I will be greeted with a mumble, "Did you have fun?" from Nell 4 hours before her alarm goes off, and a drowsy wag of Libby's tail, but for now, I'm burning with the streetlights in this clandestine night. There are, of course, other sights to be seen this late. That time I saw Fox crossing Forbes, street racers on the Parkway, all-night diner carnivals, certain death skinny dippers, dreams and philosophies whispered on porches. There are, of course, deeper secrets, later nights, basement doors begging to be knocked on, scenes wilder, impenetrable. I could tell you more, but everyone has to find their own way in past the gates. This is called A Walk to the Diner Interrupted. A cool spring day, enticed by pancakes, red light. In the crosswalk, a pigeon on Penwood Avenue, an automotive casualty. From below, the remnants of an embryo, an egg yet to be formed. Green light. This one's called Schema. After the toilet paper was hoarded and the hand sanitizer gone, they lined up maskless in the courthouse lobby for concealed carry permits. That's around the time when they sent the bombers to fly over the hospitals so that millions of dollars of jet fuel exhaust could bless our healthcare warriors with taxpayer pennies from heaven, not squandered on ventilators. I forget when care became an act of war. Pretty sure it was before pizza delivery became essential and the decision there was no reasonable way to cancel football, because in a crisis, we can only do what we know. Any fans of the Dave Matthews Band, your terrible taste in music will be rewarded this one time by getting the reference of the title. This one's called Satellite. My first terrible college roommate and I barely spoke, even after my belongings started to slowly disappear. Me, shy, angry, headbanger theater kid, him, 6'8", completely hairless, center on the basketball team. And after his side piece moved in, the silences of Giles Hall, room 109, became permanent. I never learned her name, but showered around her class schedule. And then there was the night I learned nothing wakes a person up more than the words, "I think he's finally asleep," whispered from the top bunk. Muffled moans of forbidden ecstasy and the soft shimmy of bed springs from above blended perfectly with the only Dave Matthews song I could almost stand to listen to. And on this night, I thought jealously about the blissful sleep his girlfriend must have been enjoying in her room in St. John's. And yeah, I thought about the time she sat up in bed, hidden, watching me towel off after showering late at night, peeping Tom for the mother station until the moment our eyes finally met. And 13 years later, when I heard an aortic aneurysm in his basement man cave took him permanently out of Fallout 3, that's when I remembered this moment of intimacy, someone's secrets I have seen, now orbiting in eternity. And how I woke up the next morning to the sound of the headboard smashing rhythmically against the sheet metal cover over the heater. Speaking of poems named after songs, this one's called Iron Man. Yes, the Giants were playing, but I found myself longing to push around acid snow already shoveled off the driveway because I craved the New Jersey suburbs' cold winter air. Not yet a teen, all I knew of my body was it was trying to send me to hell, among other sundries of evil I learned about in catechism. Under a perpetually gray winter sky, the icy streets were dead except for a primer black Bondo Camaro belonging to the guy who dropped out during junior year to change tires, slush and fiberglass fringes dropping off as the exhaust churned and rumbled. In the passenger seat sat Jennifer with aquanet hair in a black Naugahyde miniskirt, who will be in my 7th grade math class on Monday. I'm not sure her red eyeliner-ringed eyes caught the red pom-pom at the top of my Giants cap, but I saw her when girls' bodies were a greater enigma than my own. Here is where the mysteries deepened. The glass hatchback vibrated with that iconic Iommi riff as they drove around the corner to do the things people were rumored to do in the alley behind the 7-Eleven. 7 years before I bought my first copy of Paranoid, I only knew the people who made such songs took drugs and worshiped the devil. My mother, the TV, told me this was the soundtrack to teen oblivion, and I believed her. It was the 80s. We all had our own little satanic panics. This one's called I Learned Transcendence. This one time, when I was a kid at the A&P, I looked up to see 2 stock boys riding a pallet jack past the meat, making noises like they were a steam engine. This one's called... Actually, you know what? Here we go. This is the penultimate one. I got 2 more for you. This one's called Meeting Minutes. Sometimes, during meetings, I look for the person who is the worst at hiding their boredom, and I try to imagine what their skull looks like. All right, last one. This one's called After the Graveyard Shift at the college radio station. After turning off the last light in Schwab Hall, I see through the front door a crescent moon of semi-nude luminescent glory, surrounded by falling frozen stars, reflecting sickly orange security light, a satin white upper thigh, product of eons of evolutionary perfection, and 3 glasses of Lambrusco with a dinner 2 decades past radiates. I stand transfixed, my ears still ringing from the monitor speakers, my mind wiped clean by the sight of the full glory of youthful indiscretion, speaking to someone beyond the hedges until she feels like she's being watched. Our eyes meet, a candid moment, punctuated by a brisk sprint as tense arms hoist unfastened denim. My trance broken by the soda machine compressor, I spill onto the sidewalk. The building breathes with a blast of winter air funneled through antique windows. Between 2 footprints, I see a glistening black abyss of wet asphalt sidewalk surrounded by a phosphorescent yellow halo in the virgin snow. Thank you so much, Scott, for having me.
Absolutely a pleasure. A lot of excellent poetry that we've heard here tonight, and I appreciate you continuing that theme along and closing things out on such a strong note, Matthew.
Thank you. I tried not to drop the ball, you know.
Absolutely. Took it right in for 6, so I appreciate that. And, of course, the Red Glass Cat can be ordered on Amazon. Anywhere else you'd like to direct people if they want to check out more of your work, or do you want to mention that anthology that you're an editor on?
Sure. So, yeah, Red Glass Cat is on Amazon, and if you're in Pittsburgh, I'll be fully vaccinated in a couple weeks. I'll try to be sticking it in some bookstores around here. Also, my name is infinitely Googleable, or you can find me at MatthewUssia.com, and I can try to get you a personalized signed copy of it. Recasting Masculinity with Cedric Rudolph, R.K. Taylor, and myself as editors. That is available, I guess, also if you find me, but it's maybe best to get it through Amazon. And I would be remiss if not mentioning I also have an essay in Mr. Rogers and Philosophy, which you can find that in just about every neglected, terrible Barnes & Noble philosophy section in the country. So...
Right on. All the best with the upcoming events that you're going to be a part of. And once
Thank
again,
you so much.
appreciate you joining the show here tonight.
Thank you so much for having me, man. It's been great.
All right. Take care, Matthew.
You too, man.
All right. Well, what a excellent show here tonight. It's always a fun time when authors from Alien Buddha Press come on board. So I want to say thank you once again to Red Fox for setting all this up, and our readers tonight, Amy Solo, Jared Morningstar, and Matthew Ussia, just closed things out for us. Had a great time. Hope everyone listening enjoyed the show as well. If you did, please do share the link with your friends. And until next time, Selah.
She's a cruel